Good afternoon from us here on BBC Radio Northampton. Thursday afternoon. My first guest has joined me in the studio. Lisa Bass is Northamptonshire born and bred. She spends 6 months of the year out in Madagascar carrying out charity work for Azafady. We'll be getting an insight into the different cultural and economic differences between the UK and Madagascar as a result. But Lisa, to start with, was born in Irthlingborough, lived most of her life in Thorpe Mouser, just outside of Kettering, until she left for university. Previously, she was a student at the Northampton High School when it was then based in Derngate. These days it's up in Hardingston. After university, she worked for a decade with people with learning disabilities before moving to work with the British Red Cross until 2008, managing her social care services and emergency response services across Yorkshire. She then decided to scratch something of an itch, which she'd had for some time, and to go off travelling. It was to be a very particular kind of travelling, though, that would change her life forever. And she's here to tell me about it right now. And we're lucky to have her here because she's not in the UK that often or for that long. Hello, Lisa.
Hello.
Nice to have you with us.
Thank you.
Travel itches. I think lots of people perhaps have those at some stage in their life. Where did yours come from?
I've no idea. I guess like a lot of people, I've grown up with David Attenborough and looking at the wildlife, Africa. My brother did Thai studies at university, so he went off. And I'd never really gone anywhere apart from the Mediterranean, Europe, Turkey, all of those kind of countries. So the general kind of thing that you do on a summer holiday. And suddenly I had the opportunity to maybe do something a little bit more, and I thought I would just jump at the chance and go for it.
It was substantial what you went and did, and that must in turn have been a big decision to up sticks from Yorkshire where you were, Northamptonshire where the family still is, and to head off out into the wider world.
Well, it was. I actually did it almost in a two-step process. So I joined Azafady's Pioneer Programme, which is a 10-week programme that volunteers from all over the world can join, go to see the work of the charity, join in. We built schools, we did English teaching, we worked in community nurseries, and I had an absolutely fantastic time. It really opened up my eyes to other cultures, other ways of living, and maybe some of the things that I thought I could go on to do in the future. However, after 10 weeks, you're never quite sure whether it's just a holiday romance that you're having with a country or whether it's something that you really do want to change, as you say, quite substantially, your life to follow. So I came back to the UK to my job within the Red Cross, and I gave myself a month to really think through about the decision that I had in front of me.
And how was that month for you back in the UK, the land of rain, the land of 9 to 5, the land of car traffic jams and the rest of it?
Yes, I guess January wasn't the best month to make those kind of decisions up in Yorkshire. But I love my life here. I love Britain. I loved my job. I was very, very fond of York. And as you say, I have family and friends in the UK. So it was a very, very difficult decision. But as I went through the month, more and more, I began to realise how much I was desperate to return to Madagascar.
And that's the place where you went. So it wasn't a holiday romance. It was a full-blown love affair, which continues to this day.
It does. I had my 6-year anniversary last week of living and working in Madagascar.
Not many people, I'm sure, will know that much about Madagascar. Indeed, I suppose if you look at the popular public, they'll know, in the same way as we were talking about Happy Feet, people will know Madagascar from the cartoon film and the cartoon series of the same name. Very, very different part of the world. Tell me about Madagascar from your point of view.
As you say, I work with a lot of volunteers who come to Madagascar, and we always have this conversation about how much did your family and friends know about Madagascar before you came. And it is exactly as you say, people know about the film rather than the actual country itself. And the people that know about the country, like I did, tend to come at it from David Attenborough. So they know that it's the place in the world where you get lemurs, you get rainforest, you get wonderful, wonderful biodiversity in terms of geckos and chameleons. What people don't understand so much is kind of the human side of Madagascar. So Madagascar is a huge island. It's twice the size of the UK, based off South Africa, so very much a similar climate. But what surprised me, and I think surprises most people, is just how poor Madagascar actually is.
So it's got a wealth in terms of its nature, it's got a wealth in terms of flora and fauna. Its industry, its business must be tourism to a degree?
Tourism to a degree in the north. Again, the charity that I work with, Azafady, is concentrated right down in the very, very isolated south of the country. So anyone who's seen the recent David Attenborough Madagascar documentaries will see the kind of desert that there is down there, the poor infrastructure, the lack of roads, the lack of marketplaces. And all this means that down in that particular corner, it's very, very much still subsistence farming, people really trying to carve out a living in very difficult circumstances.
Interesting, you've referenced David Attenborough a couple of times, and there is a website for the Azafady charity, and if I can quote it from the website, it says, and I do quote, "Madagascar is an unrepeatable experiment. It's a set of unique animals and plants evolving in isolation for over 60 million years. We are still trying to unravel its mysteries. How tragic it would be if we lost it before we even understood it." Now, that was David Attenborough speaking in 2011. Why would we lose Madagascar from his point of view?
I think that there's a lot of difficulties that Madagascar faces. It's a very, very, very poor country. It does have opportunities in terms of mining. So there are mining companies that are coming in. Obviously, for some of the forests, that will mean that some of those forests are destroyed. Because it's not a place particularly where people go for ecotourism, it's not really conserved in terms of promoting that kind of natural wealth at the moment. The people are also incredibly poor. So if you're living near a forest where there are geckos, chameleons that are found nowhere else in the world, for the people who rely on that forest for their timber, for their firewood, for their food, for their medicinal plants, it's not enough to say we are preserving that forest by not allowing you to enter it and take the natural resources that are in it. The
flip side to that, though, is that for the population on an island twice the size of the UK, is if they are poor, and if somebody says you've got natural resources which we can turn into an income, we can improve the standard of living of all of you if you will let us do this, this, this and this. It's a decision for the Madagascans, is it not, as to how much industrialization, how much taking of those forests actually takes place?
It is, totally, but very often those are decisions made by governments and regional governments rather than the people who are living within those forests or on the borders of the mountains. And very often those people aren't consulted about that. So what happens is that, you know, whether it's a big business or sometimes even a government or even a charity will come in and make decisions that aren't taken in conjunction with those local populations. And really it's the local populations then that may suffer.
So how much collaboration is there between Azafady putting in the infrastructure for society, if you like, in Madagascar? How much collaboration is there between your organisation and the people of Madagascar, not only with a view to the here and now, but to the future as well?
Yeah, absolutely huge amounts, and it's actually what Azafady is based on. Azafady go in to communities. We are an international team, but we also work with a partner Malagasy NGO. So to give you some kind of idea about the proportions, I think there's maybe sort of 4 members of paid staff for Azafady UK from the international side, and there's 65 members of staff in the Malagasy NGO. So what we do is we work with the Malagasy NGO to really understand the problems that there are on a very, very, very local basis. We work with the community, we work with individuals from the community, we work with the Ministry of Forests, the Ministry of Food and Fisheries. We also work with the commune government and with the chief of those villages as well. So it's very, very much about pulling everyone together and developing a project or a programme that is very much going to work from there.
Clearly, you and Azafady put a major value on the facilities, on the state of Madagascar as it now is. What do the Madagascans tell you that they want about the potential, perhaps, for a better standard of living through natural resources as a trade-off against perhaps losing some of the natural flora and fauna so that mankind, their families, their society can be guaranteed for future generations?
It's very difficult because some of the villages that we work in are so very, very poor. When we talk to people from the communities, what they really want is a good standard of healthcare. People are very concerned about the health of their children. I think it's something like 1 child in 10 will die before their 5th birthday. You know, for any parent, wherever you live in the world, that's a horrendous statistic. And what families are saying to us is they want access to good quality healthcare. They want education for their children. Again, on just in terms of literacy in Madagascar, you're looking at a country where maybe 80% of the population are illiterate. So what the villagers actually want as everything that you would want for your family and your child. They want education, they want health, they want opportunities to actually earn a living. And of course they want to conserve their forests. For the Malgache, one of the most important considerations in their life is land, and their ancestral land. You know, within those forests there's ancestral land, there's tombs of their ancestors. They wish to conserve those.
This may sound like a very popularist thing to say, but it seems as though from what you've just described, Lisa, there's a parallel to this in the world of movies. If you take the story of Avatar and the story of what's going on in Madagascar, the two, to me, seem very, very similar indeed. Do you fear that the similar side of Avatar, which, let's face it, is a piece of science fiction, could that become the fact in Madagascar?
I think it's for all of us really to work together to make sure that nothing like that happens. You know, that we work with in a particular community that does have mining. But from our point of view, from Azafady's point of view, there's no point in arguing about whether the mine should or shouldn't be there. It is there. From our point of view, to get the best out of that mine for the communities and their social responsibility policies and procedures, we need to be working with them. You know, if we're talking to a community and they're saying they're having problems accessing the local clinic, and the mine can give them access, then we should be advocating and bridging that gap.
It's that collaboration then.
It is, totally. And the same for governments. Unless we all work together, the situation in Madagascar will never improve, whether you're a business or you're a charity or you're a local government.
You started out as a volunteer. This was a mechanism to help you go off and achieve your dreams for travel. You now have a great job title, Director of Programs and Operations. Does that mean that locally you set the agenda for the entire organisation, and not only what it tackles but how it tackles it as well? Because if so, that makes you a key player.
It does, but again, it's very, very collaborative. In my office, we have a big table, and it's almost like a kitchen table. There are no decisions that are made about the NGO, the projects that we're running, you know, even about, you know, when we're going to open a school, without all of the team getting round that table and talking about it. Because my job is really the facilitation of that. You know, we have, for example, in the community health department, we have an excellent doctor. He is best placed to know in Fort Dauphin the projects that are the priority and who we need to work with. It is not my job as someone who's coming over from Northamptonshire to set that agenda. But what I can bring to that table is if he needs a specialist, for example, if it's an HIV project or whatever project he's running, I can help him to access specialist information on the international market to get that person sitting around the table with him.
Do you know, it's interesting, whilst you've been talking to me, and you are an ex-high school girl from Northamptonshire, you come from a county in a little country which is half the size of the island that you're now helping. You come from a rural county, but a county which has wealth, it has well-being, it has all of these things which perhaps we take for granted. Sitting there watching you, as you speak, your face lights up when you talk about Madagascar. Equally, I've seen you clench your hands whilst you've been talking about the issues in Madagascar. It's changed you as a person. Is your heart now more Madagascan than British? Are you now a visitor to the UK and to your family?
It's really interesting. We have jokes in Madagascar about the longer that you stay there, the more Malgache you become. One of the things that I think Azafady is very, very good at is trying to understand the local culture, the local customs, how to be polite and the way things work. And one of my key jobs is to understand that, and when new volunteers come over, to give them a sense of that and how Azafady expects them to behave. Likewise, the Malgache staff, particularly those staff that work in the volunteering programs, they need to do that in reverse almost. So they need to understand what it's like for us as international volunteers to come over, what our culture is like, and to also bridge those gaps. So it was always very interesting for me, sort of living most of my time in Madagascar, to come over and sort of see the differences in the cultures within the UK. But what we also try to do is for staff who work in the NGO with the volunteers to also give them the opportunities maybe to come over and look at how it is for us.
Glad to hear you say that. Clearly, you've learnt from Madagascar. You've also exported from the UK or imported to Madagascar, depending on how you look at it. Knowledge, wealth, technique. What could we in the UK, as very much the smaller partner, what could we learn from Madagascar?
I think it's always interesting. I think that, you know, as you say, certainly when I went away and did the Pioneer Programme, I took a lot away with me. The Pioneer Programme isn't like a holiday. It's not, you know, a kind of tourist holiday. It's very, very, very hard work, but you are permanently living with the Malagasy guides and in the communities in Madagascar. You do learn an awful lot about how privileged we are. And you learn an awful lot as well about maybe taking yourself back to a time when things were a little more simple, maybe a time when things were a little bit more polite. And when you come back to the UK, some of that stays with you, absolutely no doubt about it. I think the more that we can help promote those kind of volunteering opportunities so that people in the UK actually have the opportunity to come over and give something of themselves in terms of time, in terms of money and understanding, the better that's going to be for not only Madagascar and Azafady and the communities we work in, but also in terms of the general population in having an understanding about how different cultures live.
You started out as a volunteer, as I said. There is a volunteering scheme with the Azafady charity. How can people, perhaps young people like you, with a desire to go travelling, how can they be part of that? Where should they go to find out more?
The best place to go is the Azafady website. If you plug in Azafady to Google, or even if you plug in volunteering in Madagascar, Azafady will come up. I would say go to there first, but then also look at the Facebook page. The Azafady website will give you an idea of the wealth of projects that they are, sort of our admin, how everything works. But from the Facebook page and the photographs and really looking at what volunteers are doing, you really do get a sense of the country and the inspirational place that it is.
If you do want to have a look at the Azafady website, it's Azafady, which is Azafady. So it's as it sounds, azafady.co.uk. You're going back to Madagascar in a few days' time. I know that you don't get across to the UK very often. Every minute that you're here is very important and precious to the family. Thank you for giving us some of your time to be here now. I know we've taken up time for the family because your mum's next door and you don't get much time with your family, I'm sure. So I'm sure we're encroaching on your family time. Thank you for that. It would be lovely to get you back in here in 6 months' time, whenever you're next back, to update us on how things are going. In the meantime, I think you need to go back to your old school and have a chat there, because I'm sure there could be a wealth of young volunteers who might like to follow in your footsteps.
Yeah, we would really encourage that. It's an absolutely wonderful place. Azafady is a great organisation, and I don't think anyone who has ever come and worked with us has gone away unchanged.
She's the Director of Programmes and Operations for Azafady. We'll still claim her here in Northamptonshire, although her heart may be thousands of miles away. Lisa Bass, thanks for coming in.
Thank you.